The high-level session, which will facilitate a debate on new trends in education by ministers, Her Excellency Buthaina bint Ali Al Jabr Al Nuaimi from Qatar, Her Excellency Evis Kushi from Albania, His Excellency Mamoudou Djibo from Niger, and unfortunately, His Excellency Professor Mahmut Özer cannot join us, but instead the chairman and president of the Turkish Maarif Foundation, Professor Dr. Birol Akgün, will join us. The high-level session will feature the emerging global trends in education. As we all know, educational paradigms underwent certain changes in our time, which gave rise to definitions and concepts related to education. Indeed, 21st century skills have been categorized as learning and innovation, digital literacy, and life and career skills. At this time, educational processes must be transformed in a way that allows them to support those paradigms. This session will therefore facilitate a discussion on the effects of ongoing changes and innovations on individuals, societies, and education systems in the age of digitalization. Now, thank you all for joining us. My first question is for all our speakers. But I'd like to start with Her Excellency Mrs. Evis Kushi. What are the strengths and weaknesses you experience in your current education systems, and which strategies do you consider appropriate to develop for those weaknesses?
Greetings, everyone. Dear Minister of Education of Turkey, dear President of the Maarif Foundation, dear Minister of Education of Qatar, dear Minister of Education of Niger, I'm so pleased to be invited to participate in this summit to address different issues concerning education today, be it in Albania or elsewhere. Regarding your questions, educational reforms are crucial initiatives in order to adapt to the development of the society, technology, and our vision for the future. The new trends in education, which are focused on students structuring their own knowledge and understanding as part of the competency-based learning, requires reforms in curricula, students' assessment, professional developments of teachers, inclusive education, digitalization of the education system, etc. It is because of this perspective that from 2013 up to the present, Albania has initiated and implemented deep and thorough reforms aiming at modernizing the education system, increasing and improving the quality of education, assuring inclusion in education, equipping the younger generation with the necessary skills for the labor market, sustainable living, global citizenship, and a culture of peace. The competency-based reformed curriculum of pre-university education focuses on the development of lifelong learning key competencies. Let me explain here some of the key new features of this reform in Albania. First of all, the curricular reform is a systematic, complex, and multi-dimensional one, covering all levels of pre-university education system in Albania: preschool education, basic education, and upper secondary education. This reform is unified for all these three levels. The aim of preschool education is to assure quality education for all the children, preparing them for the primary education. And the curricular reform in lower and upper secondary education is comprehensive and includes significant features and changes, such as increasing school autonomy and responsibility, as well as prioritizing digital literacy. Inclusion is a key factor of the new curriculum, aiming at providing appropriate learning experiences for all students. including those with learning difficulties and challenges and children from minorities. Competency-based curriculum for lower and upper secondary education enables students to acquire knowledge and necessary skills to be able to promote sustainable development, including environmental education, human rights, supporting peace, gender equality, global citizenship, and respect for cultural diversity, media literacy, and critical thinking. Professional development of teachers has also been considered as another important dimension of this reform. The continuous professional development of teachers in Albania has been organized according to the demand-supply system, based on the teacher's needs. The trainings are coordinating at regional and national level and are based on the needs identification reports personalized for schools and teachers. This is shortly for the first question you have. If you have other questions, I'm here and I'm ready to respond. Thank you.
Ask the same question to Ms. Al-Nuaimi. What are the strengths and weaknesses you experience in your current education systems, and which strategies do you consider appropriate to develop for those weaknesses?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to discuss this important topic. Education is one of the key pillars of the Qatar National Vision 2030, and it's critical to achieve all the other sustainable development goals, across all the other sectors. One of the greatest strengths that we have is, having a shared vision for quality education and having a strategy that would enable us to get and to achieve, the objectives that we set for ourselves. One of the key areas that we invested in is the teachers' education and teachers' development. We believe that teachers' quality is critical, and it's very important to the continuous progress and advancement of students' attainment and progress. So this is one of the areas that we heavily invested in, and the education system in Qatar is strong in. Another area is educational research. So one of the key strategies that we have implemented is promoting research and innovation in our schools. We celebrate that through the annual competition and annual exhibitions where students share their work, and they have participated in both national and international research competitions and have scored and gained awards in these areas. One of the areas that we have also invested in is specialized education. So specialized education for both the gifted, talented, as well as children with disability and special needs. We believe in the importance of offering variety of programs that meet the individual needs of every student, as well as choice for parents. One of the challenges that we are facing is the scarcity of talent. So as I think, and this is not only specific to Qatar, but I think it's worldwide, it's very difficult to attract quality teachers to the teaching profession. So what we have implemented, we introduced scholarship programs to attract teachers to join the profession. We have also introduced specialized professional development programs for teachers to equip them and to upskill them to join, the profession. And we continuously investigate and develop other ways to promote the teaching profession.
Thank you very much, Her Excellency Al-Nuaimi. Now, unfortunately, His Excellency Mamoudou Djibo will not be able to join us. Instead, I will ask Professor Dr. Akgün the same question. I'll repeat my question. What are the strengths and weaknesses you experience in your current education systems, and which strategies do you consider appropriate to develop for those weaknesses?
I would like to thank first of all, to all ministers who appeared now, but unfortunately, our Minister of Education sent his excuse because he was just part of this meeting half an hour ago, but he just really made up 7 minutes speech, but he doesn't feel good enough to join this discussion, and he entrusts me to explain the vision that we are expressing to our viewers today. And thank you for your participation as the head of the Maarif Foundation. But let me turn to in Turkish. I'm sorry for apologizing for speak Turkish, but it will be better for me to explain. Türkiye dünyanın önemli
For Turkey,
eğitim merkezlerinden birisi.
Turkey is a very important education center
Türkiye'nin
around the world, and in Turkey we have about 25 million students, and 17 million of that are on the K-12 level, and 7 million are above that, and half of the 7 million have far eğitim. And of course, democratically in Turkey, currently our population is very young, and our skill pool is very wide as well. And within the last 20 years, Turkey has taken a lot of different steps to improve the opportunities in education for the newer generations, and it has improved our systems. I would like to go over some points. First of all, the physical situation and technological infrastructure of the schools in Turkey has been improved and has been invested since 2010. The technology in Turkey has been improved, and the government has been giving the students some tablets and different devices. And we have also created a website which we call EBA, which students can reach online, and this has been helpful in our response to the COVID-19 crisis. And also we increased the mandatory education years from 8 to 12 years. So this also means that we have to have a lot more materials and a lot more funding for our education system to achieve that. And but in that sense, our physical and technological system was ready for that, and it was not very hard for us to transition into that. What was hard was quickly and rapidly going over to digital education, where our students and our systems were not exactly ready, because we had to immediately transition over to the digital education. Our teachers were not ready for that, and students were not ready for that, especially for rural students, and their access to internet had been a problem. Of course, the teachers' digital know-how has been a problem as well, but in accordance with technology, Turkey has given its greatest effort to achieve that, especially for the ministry level, for the crisis management. Turkey, I think, has achieved a great experience for that, because when the schools would be opened and when the schools will be closed, and how many cases is going to be the jump over point, these are all political decisions, and this is very strategical decisions, so we couldn't exactly know. So we have closed the schools for 3 semesters, and the schools has been closed in 2020 autumn, I think. And I think, of course, as a society, we were very, very careful about COVID-19, and we put the utmost importance on that. And because we take it so seriously, and we cared about the health of the society at first. Unfortunately, our education has been fallen onto the children and the families' education. Unfortunately, we couldn't supply enough materials and devices to every student, but within the year, I think we have taken great steps, and higher education has been closed entirely, and K-12 levels, the first grade, and high schools, grade 1, I mean grade 9, has started education from home. But I think in this year, 2021, the K-12 levels, state schools and universities have been opened, and what is helpful is the vaccination is very important and great in Turkey, and the 80% of the teachers has been vaccinated, and this is very important for families to trust the schools, to send their kids to the school. Of course, our basis today is secure and healthy education, safe education, and while we are going out of this time, currently Turkey is gathering its National Education Council, and we are going to take a look at equal opportunity in education, and we are going to focus on the teacher education and training and the future of education system, and this will be very helpful for creating a new perspective for education, is what I can say, and I would like to thank you all.
Now, His Excellency Mamoudou Djibo has been able to connect with us. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to ask you the same question, sir. What are the strengths and weaknesses you experience in your current education systems, and which strategies do you consider appropriate to develop for those weaknesses?
Et quelle est exactement votre résolution par rapport exactement à la stratégie d'enseignement au Niger?
Merci.
Thank you very much. Thank you, His Excellency, Presidency of the Turkish Republic, and ladies and gentlemen, and ministers of education, President of the Turkish Maarif Foundation, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I prefer to express all the challenges through speech that I prepare instead of replying to the questions. So with your permission, I would like to deliver by message.
Mr. the Minister of National Education of the Republic of Turkey, Mr. the President of the Foundation, Maarif Foundation of Turkey, dear minister colleagues, dear rectors, dear professors, dear representative of the institution, I would like to go directly in my speech, if you give me the authorization, of course, because I've just prepared a speech that would like to share with you before answering to the question.
Je suis particulièrement honoré.
I'm particularly honored
Du choix porté sur mon pays et sur moi-même.
Of the choice given to my country and myself.
En ma qualité de ministre de l'Éducation.
As the Minister of National Education.
Pour participer à l'ouverture de ce sommet international d'une grande facture.
For participating to an international summit of very important summit, international one.
Les nouvelles tendances de la transformation de l'éducation.
On the theme New Trends and Transformation of Education
sont un thème extrêmement important.
Are really relevant theme.
L'honneur que vous faites à mon pays est d'autant plus grand.
And the honor that you make to my country is really huge.
D'autant plus grand qu'il s'agit d'échanger sur l'éducation.
is that we have to exchange on education.
qui, comme vous le savez,
As you know it,
représente un défi majeur commun
is a huge challenge that we have
à tous les pays du monde,
to all the country, all across the world,
particulièrement aux pays africains,
particularly to African countries,
dont le Niger.
of which Niger.
Excellence, Monsieur le Président,
Excellency, Mr. President,
permettez-moi au nom du président de la République du Niger, chef de l'État, Son Excellence Monsieur Mohamed Bazoum,
please enable me on behalf of the President of the Republic of Niger, His Excellency Bazoum Mohamed,
de magnifier, de saluer
and to magnify and grade
l'excellence et l'exemplarité des relations d'amitié, de coopération
the excellency and the exemplarity of relation of friendship relation and cooperation,
de plus en plus grandissante entre nos deux États,
more and more enhancing between our two countries, our two states,
illustrant ainsi votre leadership et votre vision
showing your leadership and your vision
pour un monde solidaire et équitable.
for a solidarity word and a balanced one.
Je voudrais, avec votre bienveillante autorisation,
I would like, with your great authorization,
faire une mention spéciale à l'endroit de la Fondation Maarif de Turquie.
make a special mention to the foundation, Maarif Foundation of Turkey.
D'abord pour sa contribution significative au développement d'une offre éducative de qualité,
First of all, because of his significant contribution of development that of in education of quality one,
à travers les établissements scolaires Maarif au niveau primaire et secondaire dans mon pays.
throughout the school, Maarif school, at the level of the primary level and second level in my country.
Et pour l'opportunité de cette rencontre virtuelle qui nous est offerte,
And because of the opportunity as well for this virtual meeting that you give me,
en vue de mutualiser nos réflexions sur les défis et les perspectives de nos systèmes éducatifs respectifs.
in order to mutualize the reflection and the challenges and perspective that we have in the education system in our
Excellence, Monsieur
countries.
le Président,
Excellency, Mr. President,
les systèmes éducatifs à travers le monde
education system throughout the world
traversent des crises multiformes, les unes plus graves que les autres.
are crossing crisis, from crisis across the world
Elles compromettent ainsi
by compromising as well
l'atteinte de l'objectif ODD 4,
to reach the objective ODD 4
qui, je le rappelle, consiste à assurer
that I have to remind you that will ensure
une éducation équitable, inclusive et de qualité et des possibilités d'apprentissage tout au long de la vie.
that give us and assure us a great education and inclusive one and good quality education to the learning throughout the life.
La thématique de ce sommet
The theme of this summit
est à ce propos
and to this subject,
un sujet qui vient à point nommé
a subject that came, like to the right time
au vu des crises et des changements majeurs
with the crisis and major changes that we have
que nous vivons ces dernières décennies.
that we live in these last 10 years.
Changements survenus avec le progrès technologique
Change, came with the new technology
et accélérés par la pandémie de la COVID-19
and accelerated with the COVID-19 pandemic
dont nous subissons tous les effets pervers
that we're having, like the perversity effects
que nous n'avons pas fini
that we
de
didn't
gérer.
yet done to manage.
Ce désastre sanitaire
This sanitary catastrophe
a changé profondément nos habitudes de travailler,
changed deeply our way of work,
de penser, de socialiser,
to think, to socialize,
de s'éduquer, de commercer.
to educate, and to make trade.
En d'autres termes,
In other words,
nos habitudes de vivre.
our way to live.
Les changements survenus dans le domaine de l'éducation,
Changes that we have in the area of education
à travers les outils modernes d'information et de communication,
throughout modern tools of information and communication
ont été accélérés par cette pandémie.
has been accelerated by this pandemic.
Je pense notamment
I think as well
aux cours en ligne,
to the online classes and courses,
aux méthodes d'évaluation des aptitudes,
to the aptitude assessment,
aux exigences en termes de savoir-être et de savoir-faire,
and requirement in terms of knowledge and how to do with this knowledge,
aux formes de relations entre enseignants et élèves,
and the relationship between the students and teachers,
etc.
etc.
L'ensemble de ces changements et innovations
And the whole of the children and innovation
ont par conséquent donné naissance
are consequently giving birth to and
au besoin de remettre en question,
to a need to ask ourselves,
entre autres, l'approche philosophique et technologique de l'éducation,
such as the philosophy and technology approach in terms of education,
les relations avec les institutions éducatives
the relation between the educational institutions
dans un monde interconnecté
in an interconnected world,
et surtout repenser aux conséquences
and mostly to rethink to the competence
dont aura besoin le marché du travail de demain.
that will require the market of work of tomorrow, for example, in the future.
Dans ce domaine particulier,
In this particular area,
je félicite la Fondation Maarif de Turquie
I congratulate the Maarif Foundation of Turkey
pour cette
for this
initiative
initiative
de réunir les plus grands acteurs au cœur de ce sujet.
to gather the most great actors, stakeholders in the core of this subject.
Au Niger, comme dans la plupart des pays africains,
In Niger, in other countries in Africa,
l'éducation fait face à des défis aussi bien externes qu'internes.
education is facing, some challenges that are internal and external challenges.
Au niveau externe,
To the external area,
il s'agit d'abord des défis sanitaires
it's about sanitation challenges
liés à la pandémie de la COVID-19,
related to the COVID-19 pandemic,
laquelle a mis à nu
which has given a kind of,
la faible capacité de résilience du système éducatif nigérien
which weakened the capacity and resilience in the area of education in Niger
pour assurer la continuité pédagogique
to assure the continuity in terms of pedagogically
face aux crises et catastrophes.
facing the crisis and disasters.
Ensuite,
Then,
des défis sécuritaires avec des attaques terroristes transnationales quasi quotidiennes,
challenges related to security with the terrorist attacks and in the transnational every day
qui ont occasionné la fermeture d'environ 500 écoles,
that given the opportunity to close about more than 500 schools around the region of the country.
dans certaines régions du pays. Au niveau interne,
At the internal level,
il s'agit de la faible performance du système éducatif lui-même,
is about the weak performance of the education system itself,
laquelle se traduit par la faiblesse de l'accès
which can be translated by the access, the weak access,
particulièrement pour les jeunes
particularly for the youth
et les enfants en zone rurale.
and the children in the rural areas,
La jeune fille et les jeunes enfants des zones rurales.
young girls and young boys in the rural areas.
La faiblesse de la qualité des enseignements-apprentissages
The weakness of the quality of the learning
et la faiblesse de la gouvernance du système.
and the weakness of the system of the governance.
À cela s'ajoute
And to this one, we can add as well
l'immensité de notre pays,
the hugeness of our country
d'1,267,000 km²,
of 1,226,34 kilometers square,
en grande partie désertique,
which are in the desert,
difficile d'accès
difficult to access,
et à la rigueur du climat
and the climate
qui rend les
hardness
conditions
that give the condition
d'apprentissage difficiles et souvent intolérables.
of the learning difficult and most of the time not easy at all.
Ces différents défis,
And these different challenges that we have,
ajoutés à une croissance démographique galopante,
and we're dealing with this demography which is enhancing,
à une
to a rare
rareté des ressources publiques,
of the public resources,
ont
accentuated
la déliquescence de notre système éducatif.
the weakness of our educational system.
Fort heureusement,
But fortunately,
les nouvelles autorités issues des dernières élections présidentielles et législatives
the new authority coming from the elections
ont placé l'éducation au premier rang des priorités nationales,
have put the education to a high level as a priority.
évoquant cette question de faible performance de notre système éducatif.
Talking about this weakness of the performance in our system, education system.
Dans son discours d'investiture du 2 avril 2021,
In his word in speech,
le président de la République, chef de l'État, son Excellence Bazoum Mohamed,
last April, the President of the Republic, His Excellency Bazoum Mohamed,
a si opportunément déclaré, je cite,
have declared opportunely,
je cite,
I would say,
pour mettre fin à cette situation,
to end this situation,
je ferai de l'éducation un domaine dont je m'occuperai personnellement,
I will do of education what I will give my own priority,
autant que je m'occuperai de la sécurité.
as well as I will deal with security.
Il a ensuite ajouté,
And he also added,
à une autre occasion,
to another occasion,
que l'éducation est notre plus grand défi.
and education is our most challenge,
Ces faiblesses paralysent nos possibilités
and its weakness just paralyze our possibilities
de constituer un véritable capital humain
to deal with a huge human capital,
capable de prendre en charge les défis du
to
développement de
take care
notre
of
pays.
the challenges of the development of our country.
Notre système éducatif a besoin d'être repensé
Our educational system needs to be rethink,
et il le sera.
and it will be.
C'est la tradition du contrat qui me lie au peuple nigérien.
This is the translation of the contract that link me with the people of Niger.
Fin de citation.
End of the speech.
Conformément à ces engagements du président de la République
About this commitment from the President of the Republic,
et dans l'optique d'améliorer la qualité, l'accès et la gouvernance du système éducatif,
and in the way to strengthen the educational system in the country,
le ministère de l'Éducation nationale a entrepris d'importantes réformes.
the Ministry of Education, National Education of the country took a lot of reforms in order to deal with this one.
J'en citerai au moins 7.
I will just set about 7 of them.
Premièrement,
First of all,
la poursuite de la réforme curriculaire
the following of the curricular reform,
consacrant l'utilisation de nos langues nationales comme langue d'enseignement au cours des premières années d'apprentissage à l'école primaire.
talking about our own language, our local language as a priority to deal with the primary school.
Cette réforme,
And this reform
en expérimentation dans 5000 écoles depuis
that
2011,
we're experiencing in about 5,000 schools in the country
a fait l'objet d'une évaluation externe
have been evaluated and assessed externally,
dont les conclusions ont été présentées en septembre 2021 à Niamey.
and the conclusion were just screened and presented the last 23rd September here in Niamey.
Deuxièmement,
Secondly,
la restructuration des écoles normales de formation initiale
the normal school restoration for the initial training
pour qu'elle réponde aux besoins quantitatifs et qualitatifs des enseignants et encadreurs du cycle du primaire et du secondaire.
to respond quantitatively and qualitatively to the student and the trainers in the primary and secondary cycles.
D'ores et déjà, cette année,
So this year, for example,
le concours d'entrée à l'école normale d'instituteurs
the race going to the competition dealing with accessing the school, the high school of trainers
est exclusivement réservé aux titulaires du baccalauréat.
is exclusively given to the diplomate degree of baccalaureate.
Troisièmement,
Third,
l'introduction du numérique
the introduction of the digital area
dans l'optique de combler le déficit de support pédagogique
in the area to deal with the gap that we have in the pedagogical support,
d'améliorer les pratiques pédagogiques,
to improve the pedagogical practices,
de poursuivre, de promouvoir la formation à distance
to promote the online training,
pour immatérialiser l'espace,
to immaterialize the space,
contribuant à renforcer ainsi la résilience de notre système éducatif.
contributing to the resilience of our country. For the improvement.
Quatrièmement,
Fourth,
l'amélioration du cadre juridique de l'enseignement privé
the improvement of the judicial framework in our school in here in Niger,
l'enseignement privé
private school,
et le renforcement du dispositif d'encadrement et de contrôle
and the strengthening of the control and the strengthening of this framework as well,
pour amener cet important sous-secteur
to bring this subsector
à mieux jouer sa partition au
better-
service de notre à mieux jouer sa partition au service d'une offre éducative plus élargie et de bonne qualité.
To better bring this subsector, to better for this partition to the service that the education gives, and also in a way that we can have a good quality.
Cinquièmement,
5,
le remplacement progressif
the progressive replacement
des classes en paillotte par des salles en matériaux définitifs
of the classes that we used to dealing with some woods.
Le Niger en compte environ 36 000 salles de classe paillotte.
And Niger has about, like 36,000 classes made of wood.
Ce qui crée des situations d'insécurité pour les élèves.
And that will bring and occur some insecurity for the students.
Nous prospectons la construction de classes en matériaux alternatifs.
So we're dealing with the definitive construction
pour résoudre ce problème sécuritaire pour nos enfants et nos enseignants.
To resolve this problem, security problem for our children and for our kids.
Sixièmement,
6,
l'accélération de la scolarisation de la jeune fille.
The acceleration of the scholarization of young girls.
Il est question de poursuivre
Is to go and follow
la construction des internats des filles,
the building and the construction of the school boarding of young girls,
pour les maintenir le plus longtemps à l'école,
to maintain them for long time at school,
et réduire ainsi les risques de mariage précoce,
and reduce also the risk of early marriage for these young girls,
conformément aux engagements du président de la République.
Dealing with the commitment of the President of the Republic.
Septièmement,
7,
l'amélioration de la gouvernance du sous-secteur,
the improvement of the governance of the subsector.
En instituant des
His
contrats de
Excellency, I'm
performance,
very
by
sorry
giving
to interrupt,
performance
but we're running out of time, so I'd like to ask my second question, please. I'm very sorry that I had to interrupt. Again, my final question, once again, I'll start with Her Excellency Evis Kushi. What are the most critical gained experiences of your countries during and after the pandemic? And how do you plan to use these experiences in determining your future policies?
Ma question, je suis vraiment désolé de vous interrompre. Ma question serait vraiment de vous poser parce que je vais
Well, the COVID-19 pandemic, considered a major global challenge, affected every aspect and sector of society, including education. And due to the situation created by this pandemic, our ministry closed educational institutions from 9 March of 2020 and dedicated that students in grades 1 to 11 should continue distance learning until 29th of May 2020. 3 main forms of distance learning were used during this period in our country. Videos of lessons on Albania national television, communication between students and teachers through various platforms that enabled the creation of virtual classroom like Google Classroom, Google Hangouts, Zoom, etc. And a new online platform was built for online learning and for the publication of lessons, videos, in which teachers could conduct lessons. The challenges we faced during the pandemic situation were connected to the lack of necessary infrastructure, digital equipment, internet access, etc., for students belonging mainly to the families with economic difficulties. Also, online learning reduces students' interest, inclusion, interaction, and research work, which are essential for the implementation of curricular reform. Teaching in the classroom environment creates a climate of collaboration proposed, stimulating interest and motivating students. Online learning makes it difficult to improve the achievement of students with online learning difficulties and students with disabilities, because during the development of classroom learning, students with learning difficulties achieve the expected learning outcomes in the same way as other students, if they become an active part of teaching. The closure of schools in the spring of 2020 affected students with disabilities, as they found it difficult to get involved in online learning, although the assistant teachers were maximally engaged in this process. As I said before, one of our main goals is the digitalization of the education system, with the aim of improving the quality of teaching and learning to further contribute in creating a knowledge-based society by offering online access to education to all the students and teachers.
Evis Kushi. Now I'd like to ask the same question to Her Excellency Nuaimi, but we're running out of time, unfortunately. If I can get your short comments on this question.
So, during the online learning during the pandemic, we have realized that, it's an important tool, especially for personalized learning. So learning has extended beyond the conventional time and place. It gave the students the flexibility. One of the key advantages is, increased parents' engagement. So parents have become part of their children learning experience. It promoted independence in the students. And, one of the key impact of that learning during that time is to integrate more e-learning in the education system. So what we have done since then is we developed an e-learning strategy, and we have invested in a new learning management system to allow this flexibility and personalization, for the students.
Thank you very much, Her Excellency. Now I'd like to ask His Excellency Mamoudou Djibo the same question, but once again we're running out of time, so I'll need a very short answer, please.
Merci.
Thank you.
Le Niger, en réalité, n'a pas vécu la pandémie avec la même intensité que les autres pays. Par la grâce de Dieu, nous n'avons pas subi le même choc.
So thank you very much for the opportunity you're giving me. So to answer to your question, Niger didn't leave the same situation with the pandemic as the other countries in the world, for example, by the grace of God.
Mais la pandémie a quand même révélé.
But pandemics, just reveal us something.
Qu'il est impossible de continuer avec notre système traditionnel d'éducation.
That it is impossible to continue our traditional system of education.
Et l'État du Niger est en train de prospecter.
And the state of Niger, the country of Niger, is trying to prospect right now.
Les voies et moyens d'immatérialiser l'espace, la distance.
And the ways and means to immaterialize the space by dealing with the distancing as well.
Et cela est confronté à un certain nombre de problèmes.
And this, we have faced some problems,
notamment la faible pénétration de l'Internet.
And with the just weak penetration of internet, for example.
La mise à disposition des plateformes, de l'équipement nécessaire.
The necessary equipment that we need for this one.
Et l'insuffisante formation de nos enseignants à l'heure actuelle dans l'enseignement virtuel.
And the lack of the training of our teachers in the virtual teaching.
Mais il est devenu indispensable.
But it's really necessary.
Surtout au niveau de l'enseignement supérieur.
Mostly with the superior
qu'il
education.
Faut virtualiser l'enseignement.
That we have to virtualize and digitalize
par
education.
La création et la multiplication de plateformes.
By the creation and multiplication of a lot of platforms.
Et par la formation des enseignants.
And with the training of teachers.
Aux nouveaux outils de communication, d'information.
To the communication and education tools.
Il nous faudra également améliorer.
We'd like to also to improve
le taux de pénétration Internet.
The internet rate of penetration of the rate of the penetration of internet.
Pour permettre à toutes les régions du Niger.
To enable all the region of Niger.
De pouvoir accéder.
To access.
À ce nouveau outil.
To this new tool.
d'éducation.
of education.
Merci.
Thank you.
Birol, Akgün, I'd like to ask you the same question. What are the most critical gained experiences of your countries during and after the pandemic, and how do you plan to use these experiences in determining your future policies?
Teşekkür ediyorum. Pandemi
Thank
dönemi.
you very much. Of course, the pandemic has taught all of us as educators, and education management is the skill of crisis management. Of course, all of us are facing the health problems and issues that the pandemic has brought us, and we had to continue education at the same time. This has been a very important problem, and it required political crisis management. So, of course, the Minister of Education couldn't make decisions by himself in Turkey, especially. So, not all the decisions are made by the Minister of Education. The Ministry of Health had a lot of effect on the decisions as well. This is very important. The Science Council that has been brought together because of the pandemic has had an effect. Of course, technology has been entered our lives, and we all have to use these systems. It will not leave our lives, and education will always include digital systems at this point. I think the hybrid education system will be a lot more common in the future, especially in the future. The individual's needs are going to be very important in the future, because this is a new education opportunities currently, and this is a threat to the existence of the traditional school. In some countries, they are not giving 5 days of education. Now they are transitioning into 4 or 3 days of education, and they are giving online classes on the other days. Of course, there are a lot of different opportunities for these, and the formation and structure of the teaching job is going to be changing, and our teachers are going to have to be able to use these digital systems, and they might have to become a proficient YouTuber for their students so that they can communicate with their students and attract the attention of these students, because the pedagogical systems are changing and students' attention levels are going down to 12 seconds. So keeping their attention is immediately a difficulty on itself. So as teachers, as parents, we have to adapt to this new age and era. We have to improve our own skills, and we have to be resilient, and we have to be skillful for our teachers so that we can prepare our students to the world. And I would like to thank all of the ministers for coming to this summit, and I would like to thank them for joining us.
Thank you very much, Professor Birol Akgün. I would like to thank our distinguished speakers for their contributions: Her Excellency Buthaina bint Ali Jabr Nuaimi, Her Excellency Evis Kushi, His Excellency Mamoudou Djibo, and Professor Dr. Birol Akgün. Thank you very much for joining us. Now we'll have a short video to watch.